Hello, hello. Welcome to Alicyn's Wonderland, the show that takes you down the rabbit hole into the wild and wonderful world of animation and video games. I just want to say hi to everybody. Hi, everybody. Take two. Sorry for the poor Wi-Fi connection. We are back. I was on my home. Hey, Mr. Giz. Hey, Eric. It's so good to see you. CB Puppet, Hunter Murray, Sebastian. The whole gang is here. Hey, Peyton. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us live. You know, it always makes the show so much more special to have you here with us. And tonight's guest is going to be Eric Rogers. I'm really excited to bring Eric Rogers onto the show. We've never met in real life, but Eric is, he is the show creator of Skylanders Academy, which is one of my son's favorite shows, as well as being a writer on Futurama, Polly Pocket, and a ton of other shows. So we're going to go ahead and dive into Eric's career, some of the challenges and successes he's faced as a show creator and animation writer, and all about some of the new stuff he has on the plate. So I'm really excited to bring him onto the show. Guys, put your hands together for the one and only Eric Rogers. Get ready. Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. This is trippy.
Yes, I know. There's nothing like an interview where you have to actually stare at your own face for the entire time.
Well, what the good news is I'm staring at your face because the comments are blocking mine, which is for the best. So
yay.
I don't have to look at me.
Yay.
The comments will just block me out. So there you go.
Yes. Well, I can see you. How are you doing, Eric?
I'm great. I'm post COVID booster today. Yeah, yesterday was the bad day. I got the booster on Monday. Yesterday, what is today? Wednesday? Yeah, booster on Monday. Tuesday was a disaster of bodily shutdownness, and then today has been the back to normal, catching up on the work I ignored yesterday to take long naps, and all is well. All is well.
Yes. Yeah, so many of us are going through that right now. Like, yeah. We know we're probably going to have a down day, so we'll see how it goes. But congratulations.
Feeling good.
There needs to be some kind of like rally, like boosted, you know, like
right?
some kind of like
some sort of branded hashtag or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Congratulations.
No, yeah, right on. Thank you.
Yay. And did you have a good day so far, or just getting caught up in work and everything?
Yeah, it's been, my days, today's day was a normal day for me where I've been dabbling on a few different things of late. So it's basically been, set aside some time for this thing, set aside some time for this thing, set aside some time for this thing, set aside some time for my kid when he gets him from school, do this awesome interview. And then, I'll go out and drink a glass of wine with the family and have dinner, and perfect end of the day.
Fantastic. Yeah. So you're a dad. You said you have a child?
Yeah, 9-year-old boy.
9. Oh, that's such a fun age.
Mm-hmm. Just turned 9 over the weekend. He had a reptile petting zoo party in the backyard. So
what?
That was super fun and incredibly inexpensive. I should add. It was the kids that were invited. It was a smaller party because, we're trying to just be responsible. But, we probably had 8 or 9 boys and girls, and the reptile lady brought like 6 different snakes and lizards of all different sizes and shapes. And kids were just enthralled as heck. So it was a perfect little celebration for kids that age, and couldn't have gone better. My wife made a snake cake from scratch, so
what?
She got crafty like that. Yeah.
How does one make a snake cake?
So she found this recipe online, and it's basically bundt cakes. You need a bundt cake pan, and you make 2 of them, and then you cut them in half, and then you shape them. One, half going this way, half going that way, half going this way, half going that way. And then you just cover it in icing, and the scales were made of M&Ms. And then you buy some googly eyes for the eyes, and you use a Twizzler for the snake tongue. And you're set.
Oh my gosh, that's so
Yeah,
clever. Now
yeah, it was
everybody
very
else
good.
is like, what are we gonna do?
Yeah, yeah. And you have a son, is that correct?
I do. He's almost 6.
Awesome.
Almost
That's a great
6.
age.
Yeah, it's so fun. He's in there
Excellent.
watching, he was just watching some Gravity Falls, which has been getting turned on to, but it scares him.
Yeah, Gravity Falls is one of those where it's right like for the six it's for the 6 to 11 set, but like if you're on that 6 year old side of things, it can dabble with some spooky stuff, which is the great thing about the show. But I can
Yeah.
see how a 6 year old would be like,
Yeah, the
um,
thrilling supernatural stuff
yeah,
that
exactly, yeah.
stuff nightmares are made out of. Wait, it's funny because I think like the fear factor didn't really come in until recently. For a long time, he wasn't phased by a lot of things, but now there's a little more "Are you afraid of the dark?" than before. So I think it's, I don't
Yeah,
know, an interesting development. But
absolutely.
yeah, so it's so interesting because I was doing some research and I was reading about an interesting story about somebody that inspired you to be a
Hmm.
TV writer. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that. I feel that so many people, might have aspirations. More people have aspirations now to work in television than when we were growing up and stuff. And
Yeah.
but you were kind of exposed to that early. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, well, I knew I was going to be a writer very early on. I in high school, the story I like to tell that was the path, how I got forged in onto this path was, I was a sophomore and I was taking creative writing class, and the assignment was, go home and write 6 to 7 handwritten double space pages, any story you want, but it has to be, a fictional narrative. And so, I'm this kid who's grown up loving movies, and this is this is yeah, 89. So, Die Hard had just come out the previous year, and that's one of my all-time favorite films still. Like to this day, like if I catch Die Hard on right now, I might end this interview and go watch it from here.
I
But yeah, so Die Hard. So I wrote this. So I went home and I wrote this Die Hard knockoff. It was terrible, but it ended up. Yeah, I didn't stop writing until I was done with the story, which ended up being 50 pages long, 50
wow.
handwritten pages. And so I turned it in because, as you know, as a creative, you have to have, and you have to embrace this a little bit as you go along, but you have to have a little arrogance about what you do. You have to believe in yourself, not be cocky, but be like, yeah, I'm pretty good at this. So at that point I was like, yeah, my Die Hard story is going to be dope. So, I turned it in, and then, you hand it to your teacher, and, Mr. Romano, he's my teacher at that time. He goes wide eyed, and I'm like, oh crap, I've totally bombed this. A couple days goes by, and the whole time I'm thinking, oh, here comes the F, because I didn't do what the assignment was. And so he's handing back in class, he's handing back the assignments, the stories, and instead of giving me mine, he just kind of comes. He's walking up and down the aisles, and he comes over to my desk, and he's like, "Just come see me after class." And I'm like, "Oh man, okay." So class lets out, and then I walk up to his desk, and he goes, he's holding the story, and he's like, "This is not what I asked for." And I'm like, "I know." He's like, "Yeah, but it's really great." He's like, "It's really great, and I think you have a gift, and I think you need to keep going with this." And I knew as a younger kid, I wasn't into athletics or anything until more of my junior high school years. That's when I started to fall in love with baseball and basketball and things like that. But when I was a younger kid, my favorite thing to do was just spend time in my bedroom with my Star Wars figures or GI Joe figures, and play out stories, make them up. And I was a storyteller with these action figures, so
Yeah.
that like part of me was like it was ingrained early on.
Yeah.
So when you get to high school and you're taking real classes to start to hone a craft, it was really empowering to have a teacher suddenly go, hey, this is awesome, and I want to see where you go with this. So that was the first like light bulb that went off, that went like, oh, okay, this I might have something here. And so I decided to just keep pursuing the writing thing and keep working on it. And I fell in love with Stephen King in high school. Like Stephen King is the reason I'm a writer for sure.
Yeah.
I devoured Stephen King books. I got lucky in the sense that I was in honors style classes as an English
Mhm.
student. I was terrible at math and everything else, but English was my jam. And so so being in English, higher level English classes, I had teachers that really encouraged, like they encourage us to read anything. So if you're
Mhm.
telling me at this point, and I'm falling in love with Stephen King, you're telling me I can just read anything. Well, I'm reading Stephen King until the cows come home. So I'm reading, and by the way, I don't know if you're a big fan of Stephen King, but all of his novels, especially back then in the 80s, you're talking 700, 800, 1,000 page opuses. So it was amazing because I'm reading these just massive books, but like Stephen King is such a people obviously and rightfully associated him with horror, but he's
Mhm.
such a gifted character writer and
Mhm.
storyteller, and like he's so much more than that. Like he creates scenes and worlds and moments in a way that has I've never liked as much as what he does. Like he hits the spots for me. So I'm devouring Stephen King at this point, and I'm thinking maybe I'm going to be a novelist, or at the very least write some short stories and see where that goes. And so I go to college, and before I go to college, my senior year of high school, my mom worked for this gentleman who was having a retirement party, and I was my mom's plus one, and
Hey.
yeah. So we go to this thing, and the gentleman she worked for has this daughter named Ann Donahue, who's a very popular, big time producer here in Hollywood. Um, Sorry, I keep clearing my throat. Big time writer producer here in town, and I meet her for the first time, and she describes what she does. She's a writer producer on China Beach, and I'm like, what? Like you write TV? That's a job? Like you get paid to do that? She's like, yeah, being smart about it, she wasn't like, oh, yeah, I'm getting paid a lot, but I had no idea that like
Good
what
stuff.
TV writers made or anything like that. But I just was like another light bulb went on in my head. I'm like, TV writing,
Yeah.
oh, well, that could be a thing in the future.
Yeah.
So I tell her like that's very exciting, and she goes, listen, um, what I want you to do is to go to college, and when you get to your senior year of college, if this is still a passion for you, if this is something you want to do, write me a letter. This is how long ago it was. It was write me a letter. It wasn't call me. It wasn't text me. It wasn't shoot me an email.
And she
It
gave
was
your
write.
address?
She gave me her home address.
Wow.
And so three and a
And you're
half
like, I
years.
hope she didn't move.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, really, right? So 3.5 years go by, and then I've reached the midpoint of my senior year of college, and I'm like, yeah, I want to move to LA and do this. I knew enough about the industry at that point. I was a super film nerd at that point. Like I'm just drinking. Especially my senior year of college, like 1994 into '95 was just a banner year of film content with Ed Wood and Pulp Fiction and just those fantastic indie films that just really started to show who all these auteur directors and writers were that were going to like basically set the scene for the next 20 plus years.
Yeah.
But where was I going with my story? Yeah, so I'm thinking I want to be a film writer
And were you
and
majoring in film at the time, or was your
creative writing. Yeah,
creative writing?
So I
Okay.
went to Miami University in Ohio, and
In Ohio.
yeah, in
Because I
Ohio,
went to
and they didn't have a film program, so I'm a double major. I'm doing English literature, which is a garbage degree unless you're going to be an academic, and a creative writing degree,
that.
which is I want to be a writer, and and I say that facetiously about the degree being garbage. I'm just playing, but I write her this letter, and I say I'd like to move to LA and pursue this. And she said, okay, when you get here, here's my phone number. Call me, and if I can help you, I'm going to help you. So I graduate in May. August of that year, I work all summer. August of that year, I load up my car, drive across the country. Stupidly, did not take any time. Felt like I had to get here in 4 days, which I did. I should have just taken 2 weeks. I don't know why. One of the regrets of my life is like not going, hey, I don't have anywhere to be. Why don't I just see this country? But that's another story for another day. So I jam myself out here, and I call her up and I said, "Hey, it's me, and I'm ready to do my thing." And she said, "Well, good timing. Actually, timing was great. Yeah, there's a good thing I rushed because there was a PA job open on a show called Murder One, which is a Stephen Bochco drama, fresh off the heels of NYPD Blue and it being this big hit. And
Wow.
this PA job was open. She said, "I'll get you in for an interview." And she's like, "That's the best I can do." And I'm like, "Great." Lo and behold, I got that job.
Oh my
So
God, I'm getting
yeah,
goosebumps.
yeah. So 2 weeks
Boom.
into being in LA, I had my
Yeah.
first job. And like, I knew nothing about nothing. I probably should have been fired 15 times over. I was making it up as I went along. But this job was great because, I say this a lot. And anytime anybody wants to talk to me about my experiences, being a PA on a film or a TV set is just the best job for an entry level person, because you are forced to interact with every department. You deliver scripts to every department and you get lunches for every department. And you get a bird's eye view of how what everybody does on a set. Obviously actors are the faces of the shows, and we know what they do because we watch it. And but you don't see what a writer's room is. You don't see how a director preps. You don't know what the hell an AD is. You don't know what craft services does. So that opportunity, I was a PA for 2 seasons, and I just really like cemented the fact that I was like, okay, writer's room, writer, TV writer. That's what I want to be. So after Murder One ends, there was a Bochco pilot being done at the same time, and so I was the squeaky wheel that got the grease, because as this pilot's happening, I was like, I want to be the writer's assistant on the pilot. Like I'll do whatever it takes. And they were like, okay. Bochco was the Bochco company was so lovely back in the day, because basically like they had so much going on that like if you were just like, I want to do something, they were like, okay, let's give it a go, and if you don't screw up and you don't stink at the job, you're progressing up the ladder, right? So so I got to be a writer's assistant on the pilot, and then the pilot got picked up to series. And so again, I was, very vocal. And I was like, I want to be the script coordinator, because I knew enough about that job where, script coordinator is the job on the set. And you know this, but I'll explain it to anybody who's listening in.
Thank you.
Yeah. So it's basically when a writer or when the showrunner is ready to put a script out, you are the person that they give it to. You proofread, you number scenes, you make sure all the continuity is in place.
Mm-hmm.
You're an editor basically for the show, without the cool title. So you're the last line of defense before a script is released. And what's great about that job as well is that job is not, even if you're working an 8 or 10 hour day, you're not working 8 or 10 hours.
Oop. Eric, your sound cut off.
Yeah.
Can you say that again?
A stupid phone call came through. Yes. Yes. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. So as
you're not working 8 to 10 hours.
Yeah, you're not working 8 to 10 hours. You have tons of time to write on your own. Basically when a script comes in is ready to go, the job is intensive for an hour or two, but the rest of your day, if you're a writer, it's like, oh, I can sit at this desk and get paid for my day job and work on my craft. And that's what I did. I took advantage of that and just kept writing and writing and writing. So now I got this script coordinator job under my belt. The show gets canceled. And then here's this small dark period in my career for about 6-7 months, where I can't get a job. I can't get any bites. And I start to think, okay, maybe that's it. Maybe maybe I wasn't meant to do this. I need to pack it in, which is stupid for a 24 or 25-year-old. Like me is in my 40s looking back on that kid. I'm like, what are you thinking, man? Like I've had plenty of cold spells in the past couple decades where it's like it dwarfs that, like 6 months, we're not working as a youngster. Mm-hmm. So, but still, you panic. You go, I'm not doing what I came here to do. I must be terrible. So I started training. I had to take a day job. I wanted to take a day job to, figure out what I was going to do. And I started training to speak, to teach English to special needs kids. And out of the blue, somebody from Fox calls me. And Stephen Bochco Productions building is on the Fox lot. So I'll say that. Out of the blue, somebody from Fox calls me and says, we have your resume here, and we are looking for a writer's assistant for Matt Groening's new show. You know who Matt is? And I'm like,
Oh, wow.
like, do I know who Matt is? I mean, everybody wants to be a Simpsons writer in the 90s, right? So I'm like, yeah, I know who Matt is. They were like, well, great. We'd love to have you come in and interview. And
So prior to that, what was your interest level in animation? Since you were
zero.
so you were focused on live action. You get this call. Do you want to be Matt?
Yeah, live action all the way. Yeah, because back then, really the only animation writing was the Fox primetime stuff. We didn't have South Park on Comedy Central. We didn't have all the I mean, you had all the kids stuff on Nickelodeon and Disney, but like that was completely foreign to me. I didn't watch that stuff. I didn't know about any of that. So for me, it's like animation clearly just was the Simpsons and King of the Hill, and was that it at that point? I think because Fox's animation block had not even really been established yet. So I go in for this interview, and I don't think I'm going to get the job because during my dark period here, I had decided I was going to dye my hair platinum blonde, Eminem style, and I was shopping at secondhand thrift shops. So I look like a punk. Like I'm just like skater boy, see you later boy. And I didn't have any dress clothes, so I went in for this interview with this crappy blonde hair and this kind of okay secondhand shirt. And I was me. I was just myself, and I'm a very eager beaver, even here into my 40s. Like I'm as gregarious as I was back in my 20s, and something about that spoke to them, and I ended up getting the first writer's assistant job on Futurama, and
wow.
That was the game changer.
That changed your life.
Yeah, really did.
That changed your life.
Yeah.
Wow, for the better, right?
Oh yeah, I mean. That's the thing. The thing I'll say this. I say it on Twitter every now and then to anybody who interacts with me about Futurama. But I say it all the time. Like Futurama it changed my life in so many ways, and it taught me so much, and has given me so much, and it saved my butt so much. Like residual checks from Futurama sometimes have like paid the bills, and like just like and it's just. Everything I learned from those guys, I still apply to everything I do today. Even if I'm doing stuff for 6 to 11-year-olds, like my DNA, my Futurama DNA is still there. If somebody's a fan of Futurama, I'm sure if they're watching what I do, they can go, "Oh yeah, that's a classic Futurama Simpsons style joke."
Can you share with us like one or two of those tips that you learned in the writer's room?
Oh well, I mean, first and foremost, everybody there are no bad ideas. Everybody, David Cohen was just the best showrunner, boss. Very kind, very open to hearing everybody's ideas. And he very early on, when you're a writer's assistant, when you start out, especially back then, I don't know how it is now, but there's a big conference room you're in, and there's a TV with the script or the notes up on it, and there's a big conference table that all the writers sitting around. And here's little old Eric over in a corner with his computer, tippity tapping the notes up, and just you keeping quiet. And you learn pretty quickly that you don't speak until they're ready to hear from you, right? And you figure out when that is, because there are lulls in these long days in writers' rooms where the writers they run out of juice. An idea isn't working. A story is stuck, and they'll turn to you and they'll be like, "Hey man, what do you think? Like, what would you do here?" And it's at that point you have an opportunity to turn and go, well, what about this? So it's twofold. You keep quiet until it's time to speak, but you're also over there in the corner thinking the entire time, especially in those quiet moments where they're stuck. Because if they're stuck, that's the time for you to be like, okay, this is what I would do. I would totally do this, because like I think that would work. I think that'd be funny. And like, I don't know if they're gonna ask me what my my opinion is, but if they do, I have to be brave enough to throw it out there. So got that opportunity with David. David was very just very generous about being like, okay, everybody's in this room together. Who's got what, and it's at that point that I started to establish that I wasn't terrible at what we were doing on the show. And so at the end of season 2, out of the blue, David calls me one night after work and says, "Hey, you've been doing a great job. I'd love to have you co-write the finale with me and Ken Keeler." And then, then again, yeah, it's just another level up of you're like, now I'm going to have my first produced TV credit. And then, yeah. And then really, it's funny because I'm working in animation now, and I started writing comic books at that time too, because Matt's comic book company is just down the hall, and they asked me to write some Simpsons, and I got to write Futurama comics #1. So, I'm deeply entrenched in this world, but there's still part of me that's like, maybe I'll still try, live action, and maybe I'll keep writing. I kept writing films on the side, really bad movie scripts, but I think that if I had shifted my attention more, just being like, dude, do the animation, my career would have moved quicker, faster into being a full-time animation guy and just going like, dude, this is it. So, so where was I at that point? Oh, okay. So season 3 comes. I just written the season finale of season 2 with Ken and David. I didn't get promoted to a staff writer job that was available. So my wife, who's Australian, I met her the year before. We met on a bus in England, sat down next to each other, and, the rest is history.
Wow, getting goosebumps again.
Yeah. She was moving over from Australia to be with me and to see what we had, because we had this long-distance relationship, and we had to see if it was a real-world thing,
Yeah.
And so I didn't get the promotion in season 3, and I was like, yeah, you know what? She's coming over. I really want to spend some quality time with her. The writer's assistant's job is a grind. I'm gonna step away from the show. I'll just keep writing comics and spend some time with my girlfriend, and we'll see what happens. So like 2 months later, I asked her to marry me, and she said yes. and at that point,
boom, going for it.
Yeah, exactly. But at that point, also adult Eric goes, "Oh, I need insurance, and I need to take care of this person." So another lucky break happens where NYPD Blue calls out of the blue and says, "Hey, we need a script coordinator, and we love you, and would you be interested?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah, sign me up." Yeah, so I went back to Botchko, and I was the script coordinator on NY for the last 5 seasons of that show. And, again, taking advantage of the script coordinator job where you don't work the entire time, you have time to write. So here I am side hustling comic books and putting money in the bank, and the working on the Botchko show was great. And, they gave me a freelance script, and that didn't go so well. And when that happened, that was the point where I was like, okay, maybe being a TV hour-long drama writer is not for me. Maybe that's it. Because I have a really weird sense of humor, very eccentric, and just kind of off kilter. And, shows like that, shows like that are, for as good as they are, as exceptional as they are as dramas, there's just no space for funniness and quirk. So, that part of me was always just like, oh man, if I could, do that more full time. So then after NY, I bounced around a few shows, not really sticking in any place. And Futurama gets brought back to Comedy Central. And the day that it happened, as soon as I saw it in the trades, the good old days of when you see something in the trades as opposed to a deadline.com email, I saw it in the trades, and my eyes go big as saucers. And I had David Cohen's number in my block cell phone. And I beep bop boop him, and I'm like, "David, dude, I'll do anything to come back." And he was like, "Oh, man." He's like, "Well, it's a little late in the game because I staffed the show, but I could love to have you back as a writer's assistant, and I'll give you a script if you come back." And I'm like, boom, done. So I do that. So such a wonderful experience. And the script that I wrote ended up being nominated for a Writers Guild Award the year after it came out.
Boom!
So, and then David promoted me to staff writer full-time after that. So, and that really is like, that was when there was no looking back. It's like animation, whatever form it takes, like, this is my thing. This is what I love. And then I dabbled in some other adult animation, worked on Brickleberry, but mostly it's been kids since then, and creating Skylanders for Netflix and a show for Hasbro that I can't talk about. But I'm also now working on a series for Amazon that I can't talk about. But hopefully the Amazon show gets announced real soon, because that's going exceptionally well. So
Secrets,
yeah,
secrets.
exactly.
That's amazing. And so with all this writing for cartoons and animation, I heard that you didn't actually watch television until college. Is that true?
So when I was a young kid, like
Yeah.
little kid, I'm talking 7, 8 years old. I liked Dukes of Hazzard. I liked A-Team. I liked all those like, Greatest American Hero. Those kind of like actiony, quirky, dramas on ABC and NBC. All those. They were great. But it wasn't like I grew up loving television. Like if you were to ask me what my favorite show was growing up, it was Three's Company. Like John Ritter's physical comedy, like that show
Yeah.
that was like the only must see show for me.
Okay.
So as I get older, I become a sports nut, and I wasn't good at sports, but the thing I watched religiously was Major League Baseball and NBA television. So the crappy little TV I had in my room, dedicated full time to NBA
Two.
games and baseball. Like I didn't even watch football, like didn't care, like just it was like the TV wasn't on unless it was NBA or baseball. So I'm not watching anything, during these late 80s, early 90s years. And it's funny, I'll talk to some of my peers at this point. They're like, "Oh, didn't you love That's Doug and Rugrats?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"What? Like I didn't watch any of that." But I still was a movie nut. I loved movies, like
Uh-huh.
movies, like just because we grew in the house we grew up in. My dad. My dad was a movie nut, and we were the family that went to Blockbuster on a Friday night and brought home 6 films for the weekend.
That was a
So
lot of families.
yeah, right. So, but yeah,
And
just
the
not a
popcorn,
big.
you go through and get like the popcorn and like the movie theater size like thing of
Oh,
like gummy bears or
yeah, there you
nonpareils.
go. Yeah, there you go. But yeah, so that was the reason why I didn't watch anything, because I just was either watching a movie or I was watching sports.
Mhm.
And then in college, again, it was just sports or nothing, or movies. Like movies I still went to religiously, but like, like early 90s television, Northern Exposure, or Seinfeld. And like I caught up on those things a little bit later. Like my
Yeah.
senior year of college, I had a good buddy who we would do the Thursday, or the Thursday night NBC must see TV thing. And that's when I really started to get back into television, because I would go to her place and we would eat pizza, and then it was like, oh, man, this is fantastic. And Friends was Friends, but and I remember my senior year of college too. We watched some of NYPD Blue. I wasn't that into the show. It didn't have its hooks in me until later, but it was like something we would be hanging out, and there it was on TV. and and,
Hmm.
and really, so it wasn't until I came out here and was working in this industry that it occurred to me. I was like, oh, I should know more about television. So yeah, at that point it was like, watch
Yeah.
TV, Rogers. So yeah.
So then you're working at Futurama, you're working in adult animated television. How do you make the transition then to work in children's TV?
Uh, it was interesting because I know that you were going to ask me about this, and this is a question I really like being asked, because I think that it speaks to how things have changed um, over the years. Kids TV has become more sophisticated. The storytelling has more stakes. The writing has risen to the kids level, as opposed to dumbing it down.
Hmm.
Like kids these days, they have so much more access to information, and they're just infinitely smarter than we were back in the day, because they're exposed to more. It's just instinctively their minds are like, oh no, I know what you're talking about. Like, oh, I know what life and death is. And I mean, maybe like I know that my dog Scruffy didn't go to heaven, like whatever it is, right?
Because my son was just asking me tonight, you or me, mommy, who do you want to die? I was like,
Oh no.
this is
You're like,
really dark.
neither of us.
Neither.
Yeah.
Neither. We're gonna live
Um,
forever.
yeah,
Anyway.
there you go. Yeah. But kids television, the shift that was made was that the content, the networks and the studios, they wanted creators to come in and do stuff that was more sophisticated and story forward than it had been in the past. So coming from primetime animation, where that's just, that's what you're writing, it wasn't such a hard transition. The hardest transition, writing for 6 to 11 wasn't that hard at all. It isn't that hard, in my opinion, in that respect at all. The hardest thing I've found of late, I've been doing a lot more preschool and bridge, and that is tougher to me because you still do have to keep that toned down and simple, and you have to have the theme of the day and the lesson learned and the moral of the story, like that, like leaning into stuff.
The whimsy and the
it's like they want jokes, but you can't be too you can't even borderline crass, or like I always enjoyed when I was writing Skylanders, like we slipped in a few great like cheeky jokes that Netflix and Activision never made us take out, and I always thought, like, oh, of course they're gonna make us take that out, even if it's for 6 to 11, but the jokes got past them, so it made me happy.
Yes. Well, there is, that line between, kids and then family, and it seems like more and more shows are coming out that are appealing to everybody. They want the kid that's going to plop in front of the TV. They want the teenage daughter, and then they want both the millennial parents.
Yeah.
So it feels like we're seeing more of that.
Yeah. And it's funny, when I pitch a show, or when I'm, developing something with a network or executives, they say those things that you just said, where they're like, well, we want all of these types in front of the TV. And I'm like, yeah, great. I want $2 million for the script that I'm about to write for you. Like the trick is to, write great character that people want to watch every week, and they want to see your heroes succeed, and if they fail, how do they learn from that and grow as people, and I'm not saying they have to be perfect. They should be flawed, because we're flawed, and audiences want to.
Well, other people are flawed, Eric.
Yeah. Most people are flawed, not the people in this call. But people want to see that in the reflection of the content they're watching. So I always, it's always the funniest ask for me when the executives and studios want that, because I'm just like, we'll get there, but you got to trust me that I'm going to get you there. Like, even if you're not hearing it in the pitch right now, like, if you love the idea and you love this world, like, we'll get you to where we can get everybody sitting down in front of the end of the show and, ticking those boxes. But, it's a process.
Mm-hmm. And so then what was your first children's show that you wrote for?
First one was an episode of, was it Teen Titans Go? I think Teen Titans Go was the first episode, first freelance. And then I did an episode of Kick Buttowski that never aired. And
I haven't thought about that.
I did a handful of Littlest Pet Shop. Wrote an episode of Wander Over Yonder. Those were the first. Yeah, a little bit of trial by fire there. Figuring out how the 6 to 11 world works. It's it's one of those things where you need to work and you need to pay your bills. So if a primetime animation job isn't sitting there and ready for you to rock it, you go, okay, well, I'm an animation writer. I know how to do this, but how do I transition into this so I can take care of my family,
So that was the motivation then. It wasn't necessarily like, I think this is my new passion. It was sort of just like, let's look at opportunities that exist.
Yeah. Yeah, because the mistake I made, and this is, it was almost a fatal flaw, was, I'm on Futurama, and, those final 2 seasons, and arrogantly, I'm sitting there thinking, I wasn't looking for work, knowing the show was going to end, there was no talk of, after this final episode is written, Comedy Central is bringing us back. Like, David Cohn was like, we're done. Like, everybody is going their separate ways. I was sitting there thinking, well, I've got a Writers Guild Award nomination, and I'm working on Futurama. I'll take a couple months off, and then people are going to be like, hey, here's money, Rogers. Go do your thing. That absolutely did not happen. I went a whole year doing piecemeal work, and I had just had a baby at that point, and it was like you know, your hair starts to turn white real fast at that point. You know, yeah, and you got a mortgage and a baby and a you know, spouse to take care of, and you know, so it was a bit of out of necessity, where I was like, you know, and at that point I had done you know, here and there some freelance in the 6 to 11 world, but you know, I was like, I can't just be looking for prime time jobs. I need to be looking for full-time 6 to 11 or preschool jobs. And so it was that necessity of like, I got to take care of my family. And then once I got into 6 to 11 full-time, I was like, oh, I really love this world. I love working in this world. I love working with the characters on these shows. And you know, and then that's when, the opportunity
with you having a child too, so
absolutely
watching and seeing what's on the air and what's not on the air.
Oh yeah, you have the best when you have a kid. Our kids' ages, it's the best because they are sitting there watching all sorts of content, and they are telling me in real time, I don't love this, I love this, and me as a student of writing and animation storytelling, I'm going, okay, this is what's ticking his boxes. This is what's ticking his friends' boxes. Just, you know, learn from this and apply this to what you're doing so you can be more successful and hopefully keep a show on the air for more than 6 episodes or one season or, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah. Wow, that's so amazing. So then do you feel that the difference is in how you approach writing an episode is different from adult to child?
It is because the risks you can take with adult animation are just infinitely more, you know, like, you know, you can do some clever crass jokes, you know, you can do some more adult theme type things. You know, I've certainly had a handful of situations where a studio working on these 6 to 11s has had to pull me back and be like, dude, like this thing in this outline, that's not going to fly. You got to, and it's always funny because like they'll give you that note and you're like, okay, that's fine. It's like, I'll dial it back, you know, like it's not the end of the world. We can make it happen, you know, but on the executive side, they're like, oh no, what's he thinking? Has he totally lost his path? And I'm like, it's fine. It's fine.
Gone to the dark side.
Yeah, exactly. What's wrong with this guy?
So how did it come about that you helped create with Activision Skylanders Academy, which if anybody doesn't know is based on a video game series? How did you then develop, you know, a more narrow character development within this video game series into a full-grown animated series?
Yeah, so Activision Blizzard helped me out in the sense that, you know, they called my agent at the time and they were looking for another writer. They were looking for takes on the show. And they called the agency looking for another writer. My agent at the time, God love him, he said, no, you don't want that guy. Bring my guy in, me. So
nice.
I got this general meeting, and you know, the executives aboard at the time, they were like, here's what the show's based on. Here are the characters we want it to center on. Here's where we want it to take place. You know, it's like, it's going to take place in an academy. It's going to be like Professor X's School for Mutants. And it's going to be this action comedy, you know, romp. And I was like, okay, cool. You've given me guardrails. I can take this thing now, go home. And then that's what they said, you know, go home for a couple weeks, you know, and percolate. And so, you know, they gave me the games, they gave me the figures. And so I'm sitting here in my home office, like, you know, just looking at these little figures and going, who do I think that guy is? And who do I think she is? And what connection do they all have together? And so I came back and I using the figures, I walked into the room, I put them down.
Like the actual like toys?
Yeah,
like,
the game pieces, yeah. And I started like kind of acting out how I envisioned these characters interacting. I'm like, so Spyro's like this, and he's kind of got this attitude, but Stealth Elf's over here, she's super cool, and like, you know, she's like, oh boys, man, they're so silly. And like Master Eon, he's like, you know, he's like, oh, I'm, you know, Professor Dumbledore, but I've got a secret, and it has to do with Spyro. And like, so the performer side of me is like coming out as I do this, but that was good because they liked what I had to say. They liked my approach. They liked my energy. And, you know, a couple weeks later, they're like, hey, we want you to come and write a Bible and write a pilot and, you know, see what happens. Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so how were you feeling at that time? Were you just so excited?
Oh, through the roof. I mean, you know, because I knew I could run a show. I had learned enough from David Cohen and, you know, some of the showrunners that I had interacted with at Botchko's camp. You know, I was a good student of watching how they, you're trying to learn what worked for them and what didn't work for them into my own experience. So now I'm doing this Skylanders Academy job. And, you know, that was it was an interesting experience because the people that were around me had never done animation before. And so there was a lot more hand holding for me and my writers than I thought was necessary because they didn't know they didn't know the world we had worked in.
Yeah.
They felt like they had to hold our hands, and we were constantly nicely trying to say, you don't need to do that. We know what we're doing. And then another boss was brought in who just like when Netflix bought the show, they completely fell in love with this idea that it had to be serialized, and we had to go in and revamp a bunch of stuff. And so, you know, the show ultimately did not become, it took a turn to where it wasn't the show that I sold to them. It wasn't the idea that I loved. And, and you know, after 2 seasons of it, I took my lessons learned, you know, as a new showrunner, and I went off to Hasbro to do the show that shall not be named.
Coming soon.
Yeah. God, before I die, I hope. Yes. Geez, that would be wonderful. But that show, I know I can't say what it is, but that show, one of the things that bums me out so much about it not being announced yet and not airing yet, is that it's been finished since January of 2020, and there's 52 episodes sitting in a drawer somewhere.
Wow.
And it is completely and utterly my DNA. It's like, it is the first show that I can point to and go, that is absolutely the showrunner I am. That is the storyteller I am. And I'm so excited for the world to see it. But I also understand that, Hasbro is going to do what they're going to do to launch an IP and the way they're going to do it. So I just have to sit and bite my knuckles and not talk.
Is it related to a toy brand at Hasbro or existing?
It is related to
a lot of cooks in the kitchen with needing the stars to align.
Yeah, there's a lot of planning, I guess, on their side. So, I thought when a pandemic hit, if you had 52 episodes of something, it would be a no-brainer to go, here's content. But what do I know? All I know is this, Alicyn. All I know is this is a show is spectacular, and I can't wait for everybody to see it. It's so good.
Eric, it's so interesting because, so many of us look at your career and think, oh my goodness, like WGA award, nomination, and created his own show at this hit property and all these accolades and credits that you have. But then 2020, maybe that was a bit of a bummer year with the global pandemic and the show not coming up. And, so that as we look beneath the surface and connect the dots of people's careers, we see that things are never what we see when we just read the headlines. Absolutely. I mean, there's so many zigs and zags. I know you know this, but like anytime there's an overnight success, you're like, no, that person's been doing this for years. Maybe a 12-year-old who came out of nowhere and did Home Alone is an overnight success. But their parents have been working in the business or taking them to auditions. Even that, it is 5 years of auditions. Exactly right. Like if you look at River Phoenix and Joaquin Phoenix's family, and they moved. Those parents moved to LA to get those kids into this business as little kids. And then River and Joaquin obviously have been, River was successful at a very early age, but the parents were like focused. They were like, we're going to make these children stars. And then that's what they did, and then to your point, it's like, it didn't take 1 month. It took several years. So yeah. Wow. And you have, I know that you're attached to the upcoming Smash with an exclamation point, HBO Max show that's coming out in 2022. Smash, all caps and an exclamation point. So I was just wondering, can you tell us a little bit about that series?
Yeah, I can't. So that is from 41 Entertainment, who did Super Monsters, which is on Netflix.
Oh,
They
we watch a lot
yeah.
of
Oh,
monsters too.
there you go. So they basically smashed together two concepts. They're like, what if you took superheroes and they put them at summer camp, and what are the hijinks they get into, and what if across the lake is the villain who's always trying to get those darn campers out of that camp because they're too noisy and they're bothering his peace. So that show was a bit of a lifesaver for me during the pandemic because they just kept feeding me freelance, and I ended up writing 16 episodes out of their 52.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a lot of work. Not a lot of work. Like, it was fun work, but it was a lot of volume. It was volume work. So yeah,
And it's
it
in
was
preschool?
preschool bridge. Yeah.
Preschool.
Yeah.
And
So,
bridge,
that was a big.
I'm actually not familiar with that term. Is that re-bridging from preschool to 6 to 11?
Yeah, exactly right. You nailed it. It's yeah, pew pew. Yeah, it's what was I going to say about it? No, that was that was one of the big learning experiences with me, because I hardly had done any preschool. I had written a pilot for 41 with another writer, Josh Haber from My Little Pony. We wrote a pilot for them, and they liked us both. So they both brought us both on to do a bunch of freelance on this show. And but it was hardcore preschool bridge. So there was some learning curve there because I had never really done that before. But by the time I was done with it, like, it was just like another muscle. You've trained it and it's honed, and they say, here's the story, and you're like, good, let's go. So yeah.
Cute. So fun. And was all that, I mean, I haven't done a ton of writing for preschool, just on the Barbie Dreamtopia show, but we were always breaking story in the writer's room. And now to be having that experience in a pandemic, are you guys then breaking story on Zoom?
So Smash was interesting. So Polly Pocket, I did Polly Pocket last year as well at the same time.
Yes.
Polly Pocket was writers' rooms on Zoom, very traditional in the sense that everybody is working together and pitching ideas and all that good stuff. Smash was fascinating because they didn't have a dedicated story editor, so they have a bunch of freelancers who are coming up with premises and sending a bunch of those in, and then the executives are going, we like this, that, and the other, and then they say, okay, so you go off and write the outline, and it wasn't a room breaking anything. You were on your own. So that was daunting, might be too strong of a word, but at the beginning it was weird because it was like, who's going to check me on this? Usually with these shows, you have the story editor or showrunner who's going, no, like, you got close, but let me tell you what's not right about this, and then if I need to fix it, I'll fix it as the showrunner. There was none of that. It was basically like the executives were like, notes on the premise, notes on the outline, notes on the script, and somehow, some way, I did a decent enough job where they kept bringing me back. But that was a fascinating experience. I personally wouldn't do a show like that, but whatever works for them is super cool because they kept hiring me.
Well, perhaps your experience as a show creator kind of naturally led to being able to,
I think there was a lot of
understand the world enough to.
Yeah, I think because my buddy Josh, I just mentioned, he was a
My Little Pony
editor on My Little Pony. Yeah, he's a story editor on My Little Pony. So I think they entrusted us more than one might with just a general freelancer, because we had that experience of knowing, how to take notes and, how to decipher them and how to, fight for what we want without being rude or, obnoxious about it. I think that showrunner story editor experience definitely helped out.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I know that there was 2 or 3 questions that people had dropped early in advance of my Q&A that are not popping up right now because I think I responded to them earlier and didn't write them down. So if you guys have them, again, go ahead and drop them in the question box. Okay, this question I did see come up. Similar to Hunter's, I'm going to reword your question, Hunter, to coincide with somebody else's question. Oh, no, that's not the question. Sorry. That's saying something nice to me. Okay. No, hold on, Hunter, this one. What character do you relate to the most for all the stuff you work on and why? And then to dovetail that, or maybe do you have a favorite character that you like to write for?
So that's a very interesting question. I loved writing. I related so much to Fry on Futurama because there was a nostalgia factor with that, because I was 25 when I got that writer's assistant's job, and Fry is a 25-year-old who's wakes up in the future. So I also like to say that writer's room at Futurama was the most educated, degreed room of all time, like these doctorates and and physics and science and math and all that. So I was the dumbest guy in the room, and I'm proud to say it. So there was a lot of like, Fry's a dumb guy, but in such a lovely way. Like I was just like, yeah, what's wrong with being the dumb guy if you're not doing anybody any harm? So Fry was always near and dear to me. As time went on with Futurama, Zoidberg became my favorite to write because he's a lovable loser in a different way. Like Zoidberg just can't catch a break. And eventually towards the end of the show, we had the episode where he fell in love with the girl who can't smell because he smells like garbage. So because she can't smell, like he finally finds the love of his life. So that was just so awesome. I loved that. But Zoidberg was always great because he was money with like his one-liners about being poor or about being terrible at being a doctor and all that. So Zoidberg was my favorite to write at Futurama. I find that there's this weird thing that one of my reps pointed out to me not too long ago, that in the stuff I create, the stuff that I think that I write the best, there's always father-son conflict. So the younger, the son in those pieces always seems to be the strongest characters and the ones I love the most, because my father and I did not get along. And that I think I'm slowly but surely working out my issues in front of the world with TV animated content.
Relatable content.
Exactly. But it's been something that's popped up a lot through my work, and I did not know it. It wasn't obvious to me until somebody said, you do this quite a bit, and I'm like, oh shoot, okay, yeah, I guess I do. So I hope that answers the question. The specifics with Futurama, and then the general sort of like, characters I gravitate to and like writing the most.
Very cool. And then, yes, we didn't quite talk about, also on Skylanders Academy, you were the voice of Crash Bandicoot. So can you tell us the story of how that came about? Also, I just want to check in because I said we finished 7 and we're 1 minute before, and I know you have dinner. So
we can go. We can go a couple minutes later. Yeah,
let's go a couple minutes.
So Spyro Crash was interesting because we're writing the show, and we're getting to the points with the episode that Crash appears in first time. We had not cast that role yet, and as you know, with the cavalcade of stars that were on Skylanders, I think the goal initially was to find a name actor, name Australian. I get to ask this a lot, like why did Crash have an Australian accent? Well, Bandicoots are Australian. So for me, it was like, of course, he has an Australian accent,
and,
whatever.
Sorry, just to ask, he never in any of his games spoke?
No.
Okay.
This
so
is the first time.
There was no established established voice.
Just always just like, like making noises.
Okay.
So we're going to have Crash speak. And at first, that was so surprised to me, because I was like, well, he doesn't speak in the games, but I guess they want him to talk. So we're getting to the point where we have to get the record track locked so that we can get the show to the animator so they can do the animatic. And so there's a thing in our industry called scratch track, where you lay something down just so you have the timing of a thing done, right? So
usually it's the writer,
usually it's
somebody
a showrunner.
That's not that excited to do it.
Exactly. So me and my infinite wisdom, whatever, I decided to do this scratch track in an Australian accent, because I'm like, well, Crash is Australian, So I'm doing this scratch track, and I'm performing. Like, I'm not just mailing it in. I'm like, extreme appearance or whatever the hell line is. And so a few weeks go by, a couple months go by, and now there's a screening of this animatic. We still had not cast an actor for this role. We have time now because the show's timed out, and we can find somebody to come in and just do it, do it with the animatic or whatever. But a couple of the producers on the show watching the animatic, and they're hearing that voice out of Crash, and they're like, "Well, who's that?" And I was like, "Well, that's me." And they're like, "Well, you should do the role." And I'm like, no. Like, let's just go hire, like, let's go find Jermaine Clement, or, like, and I know he's a Kiwi, but like just somebody from that part of the world. And like, can we do that? And they're like, no, you do it. I'm like, okay, are you sure? I gave them so many opportunities to say no, and they didn't say no. So I'm like, fine, let's go. I'm going to have fun with this and get back in the booth, and I'm going to dust off my actor chops, and we're going to do this thing up. So
and side note, why were you so good at an Australian accent?
My wife is from Australia, so I've had that accent in my ear for 20 plus years now. So I'm sitting there and I'm trying to apply what I think an Australian would say in this part of the script. I'm doing a terrible job now, but so I went for it, and they brought Crash back for another episode. I'm like, okay, fine. So yeah, that's how it all came about, and I got the SAG off of it. So yeah, I'm part of SAG after now.
Nice.
So.
Now you can put yourself in every show you do.
I might have put myself in the Hasbro show I can't talk about. A little tiny one-liner character who pops up here and there, but yes.
That's so fun.
It's so dumb. It's so dumb.
Now, what about, are there any passion projects that you're working on or upcoming future things? You mentioned things you can't mention.
Yeah, well, I mean, I still write. So there's couple things. I have a series that I'm developing for Amazon right now. It's based on another IP. Just extremely excited about. Going very well. It's luckily not an IP that's dependent on something else to come out before it.
And what stage are you in for that? What stage are you in?
So we've got a show Bible and 4 scripts written all by me, all ready to go. I'm writing the 5th episode now. The idea is a short season launch of the show in 2023 with those first 6 episodes. So if people love it, great, I did something good. If people hate it, it's all on me. And then, I still write films. So I've got an animated Paul Bunyan project that is out in the world right now, like brand new. I got a producer that's taking it out and trying to set that up. It's a modern day take on Paul Bunyan. We've got a Christmas story, Christmas tree based animated feature that I love, is near and dear to me. It's basically, what if a pine tree in the forest discovered that the Rockefeller, he could be the tree that stands in front of Rockefeller Center, and his dream is to become that tree. So he takes an epic adventure from the forest to the city to make that dream come true. So,
oh my gosh!
So those are my 2 animated features that are floating out in the ether right now. I wouldn't mention the stories if I didn't have it all locked down and had my producers involved and all that. But since I got them involved,
so no,
nobody's stealing
trying to
anything.
steal any ideas here.
So yeah, so and then I like I said to you earlier, like I've been dabbling with other things just to stay busy and do different things, and it's never a dull moment.
Are you still writing comic books?
No, comic books went away when I was done with Bongo. Yeah, it's something that I wouldn't say no to at all, but that really was a part of my career that was deeply tied to my Futurama days and that group of people that I was working with. So, like I said, I wouldn't say no, but I think that ship has sailed. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, Eric, I know we are going, and I know you have a special dinner with your lovely family, so I'm going to keep you a minute longer. But it has been just such a delight to chat with you. And
yeah, it's been great.
And I'm so grateful that you came on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You guys, for anybody that is going to tune in next week, it's Thanksgiving. It's the night before Thanksgiving. So enjoy that time with your family. If I can just jump on to say hi, I will. If not, I'll see you in 2 weeks for a duo. Sharon Muthu and Noshir Dalal are going to be a doubleheader. Boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife now. Jeez, I've known them for a while. So they're going to be on the show. So tune in for that. Thank you guys so much. And Eric, thank you. Have a lovely evening with your family.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks again.
Thank you. Bye.